What is known about the rate of Alzheimer's and dementia in indigenous populations? A number of studies have examined dementia prevalence among indigenous groups around the world. The findings show substantial variation, both between indigenous and non-indigenous populations and among different indigenous communities themselves. Overall patterns, a 2015 systematic review including indigenous populations in Canada, the United States, Australia, Guam, and Brazil, found reported dementia prevalence ranging from 0.5% to 20%. A 2024 global overview found prevalence estimates ranging from 0.6% to 37.2% for dementia and 4.4% to 27.4% for mild cognitive impairment among people 60 and older. Some small-scale indigenous populations living traditional or subsistence lifestyles show unusually low dementia rates. For example, a 2022 study of the Tsimane and Mosetan peoples in the Bolivian Amazon found dementia prevalence around 1%. Other indigenous groups show elevated risk. Some Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander populations in Australia have dementia prevalence several times higher than non-indigenous Australians. A comparative review in very high-income countries reported standardized prevalence ratios, indigenous versus non-indigenous, ranging from approximately 1.2 to over 5, depending on the population studied. A major challenge is the lack of culturally appropriate diagnostic tools. Standard neuropsychological tests may misclassify indigenous elders, leading to inaccurate or incomplete prevalence estimates. In short, there is no single indigenous dementia rate. Prevalence varies widely depending on lifestyle, environment, social factors, health conditions, and the quality of available healthcare and diagnostic tools. Factors that influence dementia rates among indigenous populations research points to several contributors: lifestyle and environment. Traditional or subsistence lifestyles that emphasize physical activity, unprocessed diets, and strong social structures may protect cognitive health in some communities. Chronic disease burden, high rates of diabetes, hypertension, cardiovascular disease, obesity, and stroke, often resulting from historical and contemporary social inequities, are linked to higher dementia risk. Socioeconomic and educational disparities, lower access to education, income, and health care can increase vulnerability to cognitive decline. Colonial history and social determinants, land loss, cultural disruption, discrimination, and intergenerational trauma can worsen health outcomes and influence dementia risk over the lifespan. Cultural and diagnostic mismatch. Cognitive tests developed for Western populations may not align with indigenous languages, traditions, or ways of thinking, leading to under or over diagnosis. How indigenous communities care for elders with dementia or Alzheimer's practices vary widely, but several recurring themes are documented across regions. Family and community-based caregiving. In many indigenous cultures, elder care takes place in the home or within extended family networks. Institutional care is far less common than in mainstream Western systems. This pattern has been observed in many North American tribes, First Nations communities, Maori communities, and indigenous groups in Australia. Respect for elders as knowledge holders. Elders often hold roles tied to culture, law, language, storytelling, and spiritual leadership. Because of this, caring for elders is often viewed as a collective responsibility. Use of traditional medicine and healing practices. Many communities integrate local healing systems with biomedical care when needed. Some countries are beginning to develop dementia care frameworks that formally incorporate traditional healers. Culturally safe care. There is a strong emphasis on creating care settings that respect cultural identity, language, beliefs, and traditional roles. Researchers and advocates stress the need for co-designed care models developed with communities, not imposed on them. Barriers to formal care. Many communities face limited access to dementia specialists, diagnostic services, memory clinics, and long-term care facilities. Geographic isolation, economic barriers, mistrust of mainstream systems, and cultural misunderstanding all contribute. What remains unknown data for many indigenous populations worldwide are sparse. Most research comes from North America, Australia, New Zealand, and a few South American groups. Diagnostic challenges make comparisons difficult across studies. Because dementia is sometimes conceptualized differently in indigenous worldviews, under-recognition or alternate explanations for cognitive change may influence reporting. Summary: dementia and Alzheimer's prevalence among indigenous peoples varies widely. Some groups show low prevalence, particularly those maintaining traditional lifestyles. Others show significantly higher rates related to social inequities, chronic disease patterns, and historical trauma. Elder care in many indigenous communities emphasizes family-based caregiving, community responsibility, cultural continuity, and the inclusion of traditional healing systems. Challenges include limited access to diagnosis and treatment, lack of culturally appropriate tools, and systemic barriers.